CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. Without CSS, every web page would be plain text and irregular sized images that flowed straight down the page. With CSS, you can add color and background images and change the layout of your page. Your web pages can feel like works of art. So let's implement CSS in our current page. So here I am going to change the color of the H1 tag to red. So to implement CSS in the HTML page, we need to use style element inside the head section of the page. This type of CSS implementation is called internal CSS. We are going to make a class named as demo with the following property to change the color of H1 tag. Then are going to attach this class to the H1 tag using the attribute called class following with the class name. Let's see the output. We have successfully applied the CSS to the HTML page. Now let's change the font size of H1 tag. Oh, it's looked the same. Let's increase the size. Now that's what I need. Let's implement the same class to another HTML element. Let's save and see the output. Now this is the major advantage of class, code once and reuse anywhere and any number of time. Let's talk about CSS selectors. In the given CSS we have used one of the CSS selector called class selector. There are a number of selector but we will learn only some important selectors which are important and they will also help you to understand the selector which we are not studying in this tutorial. The first CSS selector is class selector. A class selector is defined using dot followed by class name. A class can be reused which is the major advantage of using class selector. We have seen the example of using same class in more than one HTML element. The next CSS selector is ID selector. ID selectors are denoted with a hash sign followed by the ID named. ID selectors should be unique and used to style only a single element. They cannot be reused like class selector. Let's see an example. Let's save and see the output. Let's increase the size. Let's create another paragraph to demonstrate the next selector. The next CSS selector is type selector. An element type selector matches all instance of the HTML element in the web page with the provided element type name. Let's save and see the output. Let's increase the size. The next CSS selector is universal selector. The universal selector, denoted by an asterisk, matches every single element on the page. The universal selector may be omitted if any class or ID selector exists. This selector is often used to remove the default margins and paddings from the HTML elements. The next CSS selector is grouping selector. Often several selectors in a style sheet share the same style rules declarations. You can group them into a comma-separated list to minimize the code in your style sheet. It also prevents you from repeating the same style rules over and over again. Let's see an example. We are creating H2 and H3 heading tag. The color of H2 and H3 is indigo because of the universal CSS that we applied above. Let's change the color to yellow. Let's see the output. Great. This was a basic introduction to CSS. There is long road ahead.